of Mine stream series where we will be discussing with your favorite celebs, gamers, pro players, athletes, and more how they stay healthy, both physically and mentally. My name is Erina Simon, and welcome to the next episode. So team sports require a presence and clarity of mind that can be difficult to maintain when you're going through challenging times. In this episode, we have amazing guests. We're going to be discussing how positive mental health practices have helped the team and not so positive ones have hindered them, especially as it pertains to team communication and cohesion. On today's show, we have three guests from our very own Cloud9. We have LCS top laner Licorice, LCS team manager Vincent Lewis, and team manager Krissi Waters. How are you guys?
I'm doing good.
I'm also great.
Good. I mean, let's get into it, right? We all love video games, and it's so interesting about our journeys into the positions that we are, whether it's a pro player, whether it's part of the management team, or for myself as a broadcaster. So I want to ask you guys, when was the beginning for you guys? When did you know you wanted to pursue a gaming career or pursue the career that you're in currently right now? Licorice, I want to start with you.
Yeah, I've been playing video games since I was like really little. I like grew up playing them with my older brother, and we always had like the newest consoles and the newest games. And I think I always like would have wanted to pursue like being a professional player as a career, but I didn't really know about it until I started playing League of Legends, and it was like advertised directly in the game client at the time. And then like as soon as I saw that, I was like, oh yeah, like that's what I want to do.
And Vincent and Krissi, for you, in terms of the management role, when did you guys know that you wanted to pursue that specific career out?
Vincent, you can start.
Okay, yeah, sure. I actually kind of fell into it, throughout like high school and college. I was always kind of the guy who would like help organize like the gaming events and stuff. Like all my friends loved playing games, and I love playing games. Like I grew up playing games, but I've always been terrible at them. So like my whole thing was like I still wanted to like be part of the crew and everything. So like I would go to the events, and I was constantly getting my butt kicked. And then eventually I was like, okay, like I'll just help you guys like put the tournaments together. And then like it just kind of like rolled from there. Like I said, I was doing it in high school and college, and then some friends were like, hey, we're gonna go do this. We're gonna like open up a venue. You should come help us. And then just from there, it just rolled into a career.
Krissi?
For me, I've also been gaming since I was really young. My sisters and I, that was like the main thing we did when we were kids. And I think after my first year of college, I kind of realized I didn't really want to pursue psychology anymore. Like I kind of jumped through a bunch of like considerations. Like I wanted to be a teacher, maybe a psychologist, like maybe a nurse. And then one day something just clicked and made me realize that like video games were a huge part of who I was, and were always going to be a huge part of who I'm always going to be. So then I slowly just started exploring career path options and jumped through a bunch of hoops to finally get to where I am today. So
Yeah, and it's filled with ups and downs, the journeys that we all have. But of course, we got to always start on a positive note. So what was your guys' biggest breakthrough moment or the proudest moment that you've had professionally? Krissi, we're going to start with you.
I know it's a little cheesy, but honestly, I really think my proudest moment in my career would be getting hired at Cloud9. I've been an avid supporter of C9 since like their inception in 2013, and sitting down with Jack for my intro interview was so surreal. I remember that whole day just didn't even feel real. So I think that that's just the biggest thing for me. Also, I mean, my previous job at Esports in Las Vegas, I sat through open interviews for 4 hours just to get an interview with the GM, and was picked out of hundreds and hundreds of people. So I think that one's also a pretty big one for me.
Vincent?
I think my greatest moment so far, I think, was winning our LCS title back in spring. It was just having been with the team for a few splits then, and just getting so close so many times, and just finally being able to do it was just, it was so good.
That's awesome. Licorice, what about you?
It's gonna be the same moment for me because like even before Cloud9, I spent some time in like the Challenger Series, which is like the B League for LCS, and like we got super close to winning a bunch of times there too, and like we couldn't quite like get the W, and then I joined Cloud9, and then we were super close so many times, and then we finally did it last spring, and it just felt so good.
Yeah, having these big accomplishments, I mean, it really it really makes the journeys just so much sweeter, excuse me, especially when you go through so many challenging and obstacle moments. Now, I heard, I've been told that you guys are fairly close, and I want to actually have a fun few questions. I feel like anytime you're in, whether it's a team or whether it's a group of friends or anything, you always have that friend that is most likely, or that person that's most likely out of all the groups or the friends to partake in certain things. So I want to ask you guys just a little fun 3 questions. Who out of the 3 of you guys are most likely to do an extreme activity like skydiving or something along those lines? Like, which one of you guys are more likely to do that?
I'd say.
Go
ahead, Vincent. You go ahead. Nope, you go ahead.
I'm gonna say Eric. I think so. I mean, like, I think Eric just likes getting into those situations. Like, I know Eric is the type of person who just like loves new experiences, and I think he's the one who would like immediately jump for it.
Yeah,
Okay.
I mean, if I'm allowed to, like it's not there's no clause in my contract, like no dangerous activities.
I was actually gonna say the opposite. Eric is not allowed to do anything extreme. He's our, he's our baby.
I should be actively persuading him from doing this, but I'm just like, no, Eric's gonna be the one.
Yeah, I was literally gonna say me or Vincent because Eric's not allowed.
Well, if it was a different world,
in a different world where Eric's body isn't the esports valuable athlete, probably Eric. Yeah.
As long as his hands are okay. The rest, we'll be
It's
okay.
true, I can go skydiving and land on my legs wrong, like that's fine, as long as I can sit down and play computer games, right?
Yes.
Oh my gosh, of course. All right, okay, so if all 3 of you were in a horror movie film, who is the most likely to survive at the end of the movie?
Not Vincent.
I'm probably gonna say Krissi, honestly. I feel like, I die first. Like, no questions asked. Like,
No, I'd probably kill the killer, honestly.
yeah, no, that's what I'm saying. Like, I die first. Like, Eric is like the contemplative one who like he probably like discovers how to kill it, like whatever it is, and then as he's like, oh, like you have to use blah blah blah, like all of a sudden like a hand comes
get, like,
out
stabbed
and
in the back.
rips him off. It's like and then Krissi takes it home and wins.
Yeah, I'd get vengeance for you guys.
I mean, I just think, like, if it happened at the C9 house, we'd be like, man, we like hear this really weird noise. Like, Vincent, can you go check that out? And then,
Yeah, exactly.
like, that's the end of Vincent.
Exactly. That's exactly what would happen.
Okay, and then my last most likely question for you guys, just because I love to see the chemistry amongst you 3. My last question is, if you guys were trapped in a room with no, like, you guys have to figure out how to get out, who's the most likely to figure out how to get out?
Vincent?
Are you just giving this one to him because we didn't give him the other 2?
No.
I mean, like, I feel like I'm the one who's gonna bang my head against like solutions. I don't think I'm the one who's actually gonna figure it out.
You're saying it's not even because you're smart, you just use your head?
Yeah, like, I'm using my head both figuratively and literally. Like, I will be banging my head against the walls to find the weak spot, but also like trying to come up with ideas. But I don't think any of my ideas are gonna go anywhere. I'm gonna have to give it to Eric or Krissi.
I'll give this one to Eric.
Oh, thanks, Krissi.
You're welcome, Eric.
Oh no, that's so cool. And I know that posing the most likely question seems like a really random thing, but the reason why I wanted to do that is because in different situations, whether you're in a horror movie or trying to get out of a locked room, there's so much communication, there's so much understanding of each other emotionally and mentally, and just everyone's individual strengths that help you with coping during good times, but also rough times and hard times. And so, with that follow-up, what has been kind of the toughest part for you guys to navigate as a team, being one of the top teams in the LCS this year?
I work pretty closely. So I work with our academy team for the most part, but I also work kind of closely with the LCS team. And I think just one of the hardest parts of being number 1 is being at the top. Not only really means that everyone's like gunning for you, but it also means that everyone has very high expectations for the team. So if we really slip up or we start experimenting or start dropping games, there is a lot of pressure and criticism from the fans, especially like fans who don't really know what's going on in the inner workings of like the organization and the staff, right? So we face like a lot of social pressure, especially on social media.
Yeah, and Licorice, for you, that high pressure, being a pro player, you get a lot more focus and criticism. So how are you able to navigate those tense and stressful moments, especially being at the top?
I mean, it's not easy. Like, honestly, I think the easiest way to navigate, like, a lot of what the fans are saying a lot of the time, and, like, especially, like, now when we're going through a bit of a losing streak, is to just, like, ignore it for the most part, because, like, the people on the inside are always going to know the best about what's going on, and, like, you really just have to, like, focus on yourself and your teammates and make sure that, like, we're all doing well and we're all in a good place, and then, like, we'll be able to win from there.
And then Vincent, how are you able to help the team cope with unexpected losses, and especially if it's back to back? Like, what do you do to keep the morale and keep everyone in terms of their mentality in a good standing?
I think it's a lot of just like kind of knowing your players and knowing what really gets to them. Like some players will take losses harder than others, and I think it's just about like whether they need like more time because like a lot of times we'll get like bombarded with interviews and whatnot, and like either like trying to postpone that or like maybe help like suggest that they take a walk or something, or like provide opportunities for them to get their mind off of the game and just kind of like kind of together as like a family unit again, I think is really important. And I think that's something that like we really stress here in Cloud9.
And Krissi and Vincent, kind of going off of that, where you're saying that you pay attention to each individual, and how do you know what kind of helps you with realizing who may need some extra help or attention in terms of building them back up, or helping them keep themselves in a good mental health standing, and what do you do to rally around them?
I know Vincent is, I've seen it firsthand. He's so good at just being really attentive to his players and knowing who needs what. A lot of that, I think, stems from just the sheer amount of time that we spend with our players, especially right now with quarantine and COVID. Like, we probably spend more time with the players and each other than we do, like, our own family members. So I think it has a lot to do with, yeah, just keeping an eye on how the players usually act and how they usually carry themselves, and just having that open communication with them, letting them know that they could always come to us and that they could trust us with anything. And rallying around them is also being aware of, like, I guess knowing what helps them the best. Like Vincent's really good at making people, like, being a pillar of support for his team in both the good and the bad times. And just like making them like feel better through laughter, jokes. Like I think that works with a lot of our guys, especially my academy guys. It's just making them laugh or being able to like distract them from the game itself so we can reflect on it in like a more emotionally like ready way.
Oh, Krissi, you're too kind. Oh. She does a great job at it too. And I think that yeah, that's kind of the main thing is just like really knowing your players and spending time with them and like, knowing, what hurts them and what makes them happy and stuff, and just trying to like create that environment to like help them move on from the loss and like learn from it. Because like even something as simple as like, hey, before we have this meeting, like we have to make sure the guys eat. Because like usually like if we go into like a team meeting or something and everybody's hungry, like we just got out of a loss and everybody's like tensions are high and stuff, like sometimes just food is like enough to like get everybody's moods up a little bit and get people like kind of processing it, so then like once we go into that like meeting afterwards where we're going to talk over the game itself, like everybody's kind of refreshed.
And Licorice, for you, how do you balance the times where you support your teammates in the sense of being that comfort for them, and then balancing with it saying, hey, like we need to do better next time, or even sometimes pushing, you sometimes you got to push your teammates and be like, hey, come on, we got to do better. Like, how do you balance that?
The biggest thing is just about being able to be honest with your teammates, where like if you can actually talk about the problems, then like you're not really gonna run into that many issues, because like if like we're all really close with each other, and we're like we have the kind of relationship with each other where if like we see something that's like not going right, we can just talk about it, and like we can trust that at the end of the day like we'll still be friends and we'll still be teammates, and that we don't like have like really like personal problems with each other, and like we're all focused on like the common goal. So like having that mindset is just super helpful, and it just helps us work together really well.
And that closeness that you guys have and the relationship that you guys have, I mean, Krissi, you pointed that you guys are spending more time with each other than you are with your family. Does that develop an additional emotional support that, you guys are feeling on an extra level because you're with each other all the time? And what does that emotional support look like collectively?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think like we just live in such crazy times right now, or such intense times, that it's really easy to just like develop friendships or relationships that normally wouldn't really be there. And it's a lot easier for us to see, I suppose, like how people are feeling on the day to day, as opposed to like if we were just there just for work. So I think collectively we're all just really understanding of each other, not only normally but in more stressful situations, because we know that the times right now are really stressful. So I think overall, just the time that we spend with each other has been pretty positive, in helping us be there for each other, and understanding that, not everyone has perfect days and not everyone can handle the stress that comes with these stressful situations.
Vincent, how has the team, in terms of the emotional support with each other, increased, especially during this intense time?
I think it's increased a ton. I know right now we're so fortunate to have a group of guys that all like really gel well together. Throughout the off season when kind of the virus was first hitting and we first started going into lockdown, like we were all at the house constantly, like watching movies or playing games, and like me, Krissi, and Tran, the other manager, were like trying to come up with like little events, like oh we'll have like a pool day and stuff like that, just to like make sure everybody like one of the greatest fears when you're going into lockdown is like, are these people going to come out of it hating each other? And we've just been so blessed to have a group of teammates that just, they all really respect each other, and they all really just gel well together. So it's been actually a lot easier than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah, and that gel, when you guys are relaxing and get going through some of these stressful times, it only will help in terms of bringing the morale up, and collectively everyone being so aligned when it comes to the overall goals and objectives that the team's setting. So Licorice, for you, you recently stated, I want to be a team that can beat anybody. Time to live up to that. How do you balance setting goals for the team with such additional pressure? And do you feel like this increased camaraderie has helped with further balancing and even elevating some of the set goals that you guys probably have initially started before the season?
Well, for myself, and I think for a lot of my teammates as well, I think that most of the pressure that we feel like is actually like internal. Like it comes from ourselves, because like I'm super competitive and I always like really want to win, and I like hate losing to anybody, like especially like even if I like lose the game, if I feel like I played poorly or I like could have done more in the game, like that really really bothers me. Um so like I think like it's something that I've dealt with for like my whole life, basically, of just like being a really competitive person. And like I don't know, like it doesn't really add any pressure to talk about it, because it's just always there.
And how do you guys manage? I mean, all of your careers, part of it is driven by results, right? What do you guys do in order to handle that pressure of always having to have these top-notch results? And obviously, those results is winning, right? So, how are you able to deal with that additional pressure that's added on you guys, whether from a management perspective, a player perspective? Vincent, you want to start?
Sure. As far as like
Oh,
the pressure
Vincent.
goes.
Oh no.
Oh, sorry.
Oh.
There you go.
Oh no.
As far as the pressure goes, really, I try not to focus on it at all. I think every day we come to practice or games and whatnot, and just know that every day we're going to give it our all. Be the best players that we can be the best managers, that we can be, and just really kind of be the best people that we can be every day.
Yeah. Krissi?
For me personally, I also try to be just a, I guess, pillar of stability where I try to keep my energy and everything calm, whether we're winning or we're losing, just so the guys don't really feel a shift in energy if we are losing and don't really feel bad missing out on that. So I think the pressure of being on top, I just make sure that I'm constantly checking in on myself and making sure that I'm doing okay and just being really aware of like my mental health, and if it ever gets too heavy, just having other staff members that understand that and having an open dialogue with them is really important.
Yeah, and it's also probably, is that your dog too? It's always
Yeah,
good to
it
have
is.
dogs. They help. Dogs definitely help with
Yes.
that, making you feel better too. Because at the end of the
Yes.
day, you know what? If life is stressful, a dog will always love you.
That too.
And Licorice, for you, I mean, you're a player, you're a pro player, so what you do is very much based on results. So how do you deal with that pressure?
It can be really frustrating sometimes to like improve a lot and not have that show up in like the on-stage results. But like really at the end of the day, like we're always just gonna be here so that we can like practice and get better every day because it like doesn't really matter how good you are. Like I'm on this team, my teammates are on this team. How good we are isn't like actually what matters. What actually matters is like how good we're gonna how fast we're gonna get better. I should say. So like focusing on that takes a lot of the pressure off because like as long as you're getting better, then the results will follow eventually and you can kind of trust in that. And also like a lot of it is just taking like good care of yourself, like really basic stuff, like get enough sleep, like eat well, and like when I have those two down, I usually just feel pretty good.
And we've been starting to see a lot more conversation on social media when it comes to more specifically burnouts and just overall mental health conversations, because I feel like a lot of people in this community feel like, it's so important that we continue these conversations and we be very transparent about not only just the overall discussion, but even our own personal experience within the industry. And Vincent, I know you tweeted about your mental health challenges and also how excited you are to be part of an organization that champions mental health awareness. Why is this topic so important, and why was it so important to share this specifically on social media?
I think it's just awareness and kind of like getting around the stigma of like mental health, especially with esports. Like I saw a tweet the other day that was like some guy was like, oh, like esports is like a 24/7, like you have to be there constantly, like it's a lifestyle kind of thing, and it's just like no, like that it's super important that like you make time for yourself and that you have like a work-life balance and all that kind of stuff. And I know personally like I've struggled with depression in the past, and you really need time to take care of yourself and check in on yourself. And I think that that's super important, and I'm so happy that Cloud9 is really championing that.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, shoot, a girl over here needs her sleep. So that as you're getting older, you start to feel it. A lot of the young ones,
Definitely.
they can stay up a lot later than everyone else. But Krissi, for you, there is a different level of pressure. I would even say, you could even tie a little bit of anxiety to it. As a leader in a male-dominated industry, how are you able to navigate this space, especially when at times it's not always kind to women?
Yeah, it can be pretty difficult, but there are people out there that are also really supportive and just super encouraging to especially women in esports. I just do my best to keep my head up and not really let what I guess strangers or people who don't really know me on the internet dictate how I feel about myself. I've played so many. I mean, I went through Modern Warfare 2 back in the day, so I've been in some pretty intense like gaming lobbies, So I've kind of developed some thicker skin than I used to have, kind of growing up in the competitive gaming and esports space. So I think it's just really important to not let like really, I guess, the haters or the people who are kind of talking down on women get to you, because they couldn't be more wrong about women, especially in the industry. I think that we're all incredibly talented and we definitely deserve to be here. So I know that what they are saying can't be true, no matter what. So I don't really let it get to me.
I agree, and oh my gosh, you just triggered memories about the Xbox Live days. Oh my God, people think like online's bad now. Oh my gosh, back then it was horrendous. But Licorice, for you, you know, I've especially have been like starting to see a lot more pro players speaking out, especially when it comes to mental health. You know, obviously with you being on this episode, I've seen people like Voy Boy as well, and there's just others who are really, whether it's about mental health or it's diversity, we're seeing a lot of pro players and just top individuals in the industry who are really starting to utilize their platform to speak on these important matters. Why is it important for you as a pro player to utilize your platform and utilize this podcast to really to knock home the important message of mental health, especially when it's tied to esports?
Well, I just think it's super important because like mental health is something that you're always living with, and like everyone has their own struggles. Like no one is going to be like 100% perfect ever. And like in like the esports community, you're in jobs where you can basically be working 24/7 if you want to, and like people will pressure you to do that. So it's like really, really important to know your own limits and like know what's going to be healthy for you and be able to like say no and have good boundaries and also just like be able to do things that are really relaxing for you. And I think like if you don't have that, then you can really struggle.
And having some of these conversations and being transparent, it comes with a level of vulnerability. For all three of you, what was that moment? And of course, you know, share what you're comfortable with sharing. But what are, I guess, is one of those moments where you were vulnerable and you had to be vulnerable to speak out about whether it was something that was personal to you to help others feel like they're not alone on social media, or a vulnerable moment where you tapped to someone on the team or in Cloud9 and said, hey, you know, I'm struggling, and how did you navigate that specific moment of vulnerability, because that is definitely a component of addressing some of the mental health struggles that we all go through as individuals. Either one of you guys can start with this.
I can go ahead and start. I know about this time, maybe a few months ago, like last year, I went through a pretty bad breakup, and I just reached out to my manager at the time, Galen, and was just completely honest with her and let her know, like, hey, I'm a little off this week, and I could use like a bit of a reset and just like your understanding. And she, as she always is, was just incredibly understanding and wonderful, and that made me feel so comforted to felt like I was understood by somebody, especially upper management, in that, you know, there's sick days for like you physically being sick, and then there's also well-being, personal, like health days where your mental's not always really there. So having someone who's super understanding like that helping guide the company is honestly just such a good, comforting feeling.
Yeah. Yeah. Vincent? Or
Oh yeah, I'll hop in. I don't want to give any like specific examples because most of mine are kind of like around players, but I think something for me is like sometimes just kind of like letting yourself be a little bit vulnerable around your players in order to kind of like build that relationship. So when they are having these kinds of like problems, that they know that they can come to you. So like I've had times where I have talked to some of my players about like my own depression and stuff when I felt like they were maybe going through something similar. And I know that it was really like important for them because I know that like we really helped build that relationship of like, hey, like if you need help, like, you know, I've been through stuff, and just making sure that they know that, you know, they're not alone.
like Rish, what about for you?
Well, I mean, I think Cloud9 has been like really amazing about it, like have like making space for having mental problems. Like since I've been here, we've had like psychologists who are like sports psychologists who are like focused on the game and like we're willing to help like with any problem like any time of the day. And like we have one right now, and like I have these great managers that are there for us to talk to like whenever we're struggling with anything on the mental side. But I think for me personally, the the like being vulnerable and opening up part is something that I actually struggle with, and I generally just kind of keep to myself more. So like that is more like I'm like working on opening up more, and I don't really like have any big moments where like it's happened with like staff on the Cloud9 side.
And I guess Vincent or Chrissy, I mean, you probably guys could speak to this more. I mean, Licorice did touch on it about the mental health services and support that the team has gotten. What are some of those supports that you guys have been implementing for the players, and what is I guess that support ultimately look like throughout Cloud9 from your guys' own viewpoints?
Vincent, I can let you start on this one.
Yeah, so we've always been working with like different sports psychologists. You know, we always try to have a sports psychologist as part of the team, just both for like mental health and just general performance. You know, there's been a lot of trial and error because obviously we're kind of in a new space when it comes to this
Mm-hmm.
kind of stuff, but just always having either like some sort of like third party that the guys can talk to, I think is super important because sometimes when it comes to like, you know, it's a team game and sometimes there are problems within the team, and I think having a third party that the players can go to is super important when they need to get things off their chest. And I think that we've done our best to always make sure that we had, whether it's a sports psychologist or even just us as managers, just as somebody who can provide that support.
And in addition to the support that you guys are getting from that, everyone individually is going to have their own self-care regimens to kind of help them with dealing with some of the stressfuls and difficult times. And so, for all three of you, what are some of your, or if you have any new self-care practices or tiny habits that you guys have been trying out recently to manage with high stressful and high tenseful moments that you all go through collectively and individually, starting with Licorice?
Yeah, I mean, I try to have like a pretty holistic approach to just like even like how I just go about my day because I think it's really helpful for me to like be on like a regimented schedule. So like I'll wake up in the morning and I do like stretches to make sure that like I'm not gonna have any like wrist problems. I like stretch out my wrists, so like I'm gonna be good for the day of playing. I do like a quick like 10-minute meditation. I think like eating well is super important, and I think like when I'm stressed, actually one of the first things I usually notice is that I like start craving a lot of sugar. So that like not falling into that because it's just like a bad like habit loop basically when I do that is really big for me. And then just like staying on schedule, and then also like when I feel stressed, I just make sure that I take the time to like do activities that I enjoy and will help take my mind off things. And like before COVID and everything, that included like rock climbing and like going outside more. But now I've been doing a lot of reading, and just like walking late at night is really helpful for me.
Krissi, what about you? What are some of your self-care patterns or routines?
Outside of just my regular daily routine or daily life, I've actually been trying to take a bit more time away from competitive games like League of Legends and doing more, I guess, like lower key activities, especially with my younger sister Kaylee, who's especially helpful when I'm super stressed. And I've also been journaling a little bit, just kind of writing down how I'm feeling each day and checking in with myself, because I think that that's one of the most important things for me is constantly checking in with me and my mental health and just making sure I'm aware of how I'm feeling each day. So, yeah.
And then Vincent, for you.
For me, usually my go-to is always just to like be with friends, and obviously that's a little tough right now. But through Discord and other Zoom and whatnot, we've just been doing a lot of like different kind of like we would watch movies together, or like sometimes we've had like karaoke nights and whatnot. And also, I have a dog, so I've been playing with her a lot more and kind of taking her to the dog park. Like that's one of my favorite things to do now is just to go to the dog park. And for me, it's a really introspective time because I just kind of get to like sit out in nature and like I get to play with the dogs obviously, which is awesome. But I also just get some time to myself just to kind of think things over, and I think it's been really great.
Yeah, I mean, being able to spend time, whether it's with your pets or going outside, I mean, little things can do so much when it comes to the overall of dealing with stress and anxiety, especially during this time. And it's interesting you brought up, Zoom meetings because I don't know about you guys, but I've definitely have been utilizing technology a lot more to stay connected with people, even though it's funny because, prior it was just conversations about how technology is ruining the communication amongst the youth and all these these different things, but honestly, it's holding us all together. So how have you guys been able to, not necessarily with the team, but with those in your family or friends or other people outside the team, how have you guys been able to manage staying in connection with them and also still holding on to emotional support that you guys find, whether it's within your siblings or your parents or your friends who were outside of Cloud9?
I mean, for me, not a lot has changed, honestly. Like, since I moved from Canada to come and be like a professional gamer, like I was already talking to my parents. Like, they still use Skype because they're old. But like I like was talking to them like usually about like once a week, and like talking to my brother and keeping in touch, and like talking to some of my friends that were like still back in Calgary. So like I was already using a lot of technology to like talk to my friends that weren't like my teammates and people in the esports community. So it just really hasn't changed for me that much.
Yeah, my family all lives pretty far away as well. They're all from Northern California. So I was already kind of keeping in touch with them digitally, but now with lockdown and not really being able to leave the house and see other people, I probably video chat my younger sister almost every single day. We just video chat and play games together. It's like super comforting and really nice to have someone else be there for you and always be excited to like hang out and talk to you, you know?
Yeah, for me,
Definitely.
it's like I just like checking in on people. Like that's like my biggest thing. It's like whether it's a text or DM or whatever, it's just like I'm just constantly just like messaging people out of the blue, just like how are you doing, and just checking in and catching up with people, and trying to do that like at least daily. Like I want to catch up with at least one friend daily, just to make sure everybody's cool and everybody's trucking along. I know it can be tough, and I think we all really need to come together in these types of ways. So. Yeah.
Yeah, and some, having communication with your family and be able to have that support outside of the team does help with optimizing the individual person's performance because it assists with their mental health. Krissi, this is a specific question for you. So, as a manager for Cloud9's professional esports teams, what role do you believe that you think that mental health and some of the support structures that you guys have been setting up for the team plays into the optimizing the team's overall performances?
Well, I think, video games are obviously much more of a mental sport than physical. So I think it's extremely important for players to stay aware of their mental health condition and how they're feeling. In like a world where you're playing your favorite video game as a career, it's really difficult to also make sure you have good work-life balance and giving yourself a break often enough, especially in esports where we keep on bringing up the 24/7 work lifestyle is so highly idealized or idolized. So I think making sure that the players have those options and that they know that they should be aware of this, and taking care of their mind along with their body is just crucial in ensuring the team performs well. Because without your mind being there for everything you need in League of Legends or in any game that they're playing, you can't really perform.
Yeah, and part of that, it's so interesting even how social media can impact players and individuals from a mental health component, and also even that can affect their own performances as well because the criticism is heavy on social media. So Vincent, how are you able to balance that with the players where it's like social media is great to connect with the fans, it's great to connect with so many different people, but having that balance of, sometimes you got to stay off of social media because, that's the anonymous accounts and all these things can bring such intense criticism at times that can impact players' psyches and their mental health and just their view of certain things. So how are you able to manage that with the players?
I think most of our players are actually pretty good about being able to tune a lot of that kind of stuff out. I know it can be tough getting kind of mobbed by, social media keyboard warriors, but I think a lot of our guys kind of recognize that a lot of these people, they're not living the same situation, and obviously hindsight's 2020. Like you can watch a game afterwards and be like, oh, they should have done this, why aren't they doing this, why aren't they doing this? But I mean, like those people don't know the situation, like they're not in the team house. Like we're here every day practicing, and sometimes things don't work out, and I think as long as the players know that, hey, like we're giving it our all my teammates are giving it their all the staff is giving it their all, like we're going to keep pushing ourselves to be the best team that we can be.
And Licorice, for you, on a more positive note, you get a lot of support as well from Cloud9 fans and supporting you guys through your ups and downs. And how has that support helped you guys with your team morale or even your own individual, personal morale? Because, sometimes even when things look rough, you get that one nice message, you get that one nice support message or few, and it helps, it kind of helps uplift you sometimes. So for you, like how have those moments been?
Yeah, I mean, Cloud9 has a lot of amazing fans, and it's always really nice. Like, even when we're losing, and you put out like a post-game tweet, like I tweet out something after we lose, like most of the comments, or like almost all of them, are always really supportive, and it's like the same people who are always there, and like it's really great to be able to have that kind of relationship with your fans through social media. And like honestly, I think for me, like if I just stick to like my own content and I just don't really go like looking through like a bunch of threads, if I don't go like seeking out the like post game analysis threads and things like that, like
Mm-hmm.
almost all of it is always going to be supportive, because it's actually like pretty rare in like my experience that people will like go out of their way to shit on you or something. So like I don't know, it feels really nice.
Yeah, it's really nice when anytime you get the support, the love and the camaraderie that you guys obviously show, not only in this interview, but just overall within Cloud9. And what is like, I guess, like, what is a misconception or what is something that those who may not be on an esports team, what is something that they may not understand when it comes to the mental health challenges and obstacles that are tied to such high competitive, competition. It's a high level competition. What do you think are some of these insights that you guys could provide to those who are listening?
I think that a lot of people don't really understand the intensity of playing games like that, right? Like, I know when I'm playing even just a solo queue game and things are like really intense, my like blood pressure spikes, my heartbeat's go crazy. It's like everything's just elevated. Like imagine that, but as your career and that stress and that emotion and everything happening. And then imagine, I guess, just like having to deal with that all the time, right? Like that's not my job. I'm just solo queuing and playing something as a hobby. But when that's your career, emotions are only that much more high, and your mental health is really always kind of having a toll taken on it when things are so intense. So I think trying to get the fans just aware of that, or people who are understanding of that, would be pretty helpful. And it is, like he was saying, hindsight is 2020. You have a lot more information when you're watching as a spectator than the player
Mm-hmm.
who's playing the game does. So that's also something to be aware of, in my opinion.
Vincent, what do you think?
I think that it really has to do with kind of um, people can be really dismissive when it comes to like, oh, like they're just playing a video game. Like they're playing at the highest level possible when it comes to, the game itself. Like they're thinking about so many more things. Like I know personally when coming from just playing like League of Legends on my own and now being here, like there are so many more things that I think about. It has not improved my abilities as a gamer, unfortunately, but when I'm playing the game now, there are so many more things that I'm thinking about, and these are all things that I know all of my guys are constantly thinking about, whether it's ward placement, matchups, uh, wave control, all this kind of stuff that me as a silver bronze player never would have thought about in a million years. But now being here with them, like I know that when they're playing, there are hundreds more things going through their heads than the average player is feeling, and that's what they have to deal with every day when they're playing. So I think just like knowing that would be like super helpful, that just there's just so much information that these guys have to constantly be processing that, I'm surprised their heads don't explode.
And Vincent, by the way, listen, I am definitely not good at League, so don't worry. You're definitely better than me. So I gotta give props to you for that one. But for Licorice, for you, what are some of the misconceptions or some of the insights that you want to provide when it comes to the mental health obstacles and challenges as a pro player that those who on the outside may not quite know?
I mean, for me, the biggest thing that I see a lot of the time is that like League of Legends is a team game, and like you win and lose as a team, but a lot of the time when people are trying to figure out like who to blame for a loss or like why things aren't working out, a lot of time like the finger will get pointed at like one or two people, like the coach or like a certain player, and that is just like that's always felt like super unfair to me because I think people don't really understand the amount of preparation that goes into like every pick we make in competitive and like every matchup that we were prepared for and like everything that we do, and that it's like all done as a team and it's a team decision, so that like when we lose as a team, and when we win as a team.
Yeah.
And like I just wish people would understand more of that and just be like, oh yeah, like Cloud9 isn't doing so well right now, instead of like trying to single out a player or a coach or someone.
Yeah, I think that like for whether you're a pro player, part of management or anything, sometimes it's hard for others to understand the challenges, the pressure and the obstacles that you go through unless they're in your shoes. And sometimes they will be and sometimes they don't. But that's why having these conversations about these overall mental health overarching themes and problems that we see in this space, hopefully it will help with resonating with those who are listening and also viewing this. Now, my last question, I want to end it off on a really, really dope note. My question to all of you guys individually is, what makes a great team member? And a team member could be anyone, right? A team member could be someone who is another player. It could be someone who's part of management. It could be someone who's just contributing to the overall objective and goals of the organization. So what are some of the great qualities and what makes a good team member? Like, Rich, I'm gonna start with you.
I mean, for me, I would say that like two of the most important qualities that I would look for in any team member is the ability to be like, it's like honest, but it's also like honest with yourself, where you're able to like own up to your own mistakes or like talk about what's not going well for you or like what you think could be improved on by your teammates, because I think being able to bring stuff like that can be like really scary and vulnerable sometimes. And then on top of that, just being willing to like always show up and give it your best. And I think if you have those two things, then like you're a good team member in my books.
Krissi?
On top of that, those are really great examples. I think having an open mind and the ability to communicate well with your team members and understanding, just, I guess, in a sense, like a certain amount of empathy, for your teammates and for yourself. And
then Vincent, what about you?
Ooh, they took all the good ones, so I'm just gonna add in, just, being able to kind of build the relationships to the point where your other teammates like know that you have their back on certain things, whether it's like being able to put the same amount of practice, not the same amount of practice time, but like the same like quality of practice and just the same drive in general towards the game. I think that that's super important. We're super lucky that we have a team of guys that they all know that each of them are trying their best and like actually giving it their all. I think that's so important, and I'm so happy that we have a group of guys that all do that.
Well, it sounds like you guys are giving your all, not only in competition, but you're all towards each other, as well as your individual mental health. Thank you so much, Licorice, Vincent, and Krissi, for sharing your personal moments. And thank you to everyone who's tuned into another episode of Presence of Mind. Remember, team sports requires more than just the traditional teamwork. It consists of improving everyone's individual total health to bring the best out of everyone. If you're interested in learning more, findyourwords.org is a great and amazing place to find mental health resources and information. Once again, I want to say thank you guys.
Thank you so much. I
Yeah,
appreciate
thanks
it.
for having us.
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. For everyone who's tuning in, I'm Erina Simon, and we will catch you all in the next episode.